Hello, everybody out there in comic book land. I know why you're here. You're only here for one reason, and that's another episode of Major Previews, where we look into the solicitations and open our third eye to find out what's going to be the latest and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. This time, for the month of September, this year is going by pretty fast. And I'm never alone. I am joined by...
Hey, it's me, the Cog, Alex Garcia here once again to talk about September's best picks, or at least best picks for us. Because as always, guys, no matter what we say, always let us know what you think as well. Tell us in the comments. Let us know what you want us to be reading or what you're going to be reading in general.
Yeah, I think if people have been watching this series for long enough, they can tell that me and you have particular tastes when looking at our books, when dissecting, which ones will be the ones to pick up. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of piques other readers' interest, because I think that's one of the most unique parts about this medium is that we all have so many different tastes, and some books can be really speaking to us and some of them can't be speaking to us at all. I've been there before where I'm in the middle of a run and I'm like, this is not doing nothing. Oh, we're time traveling, right. So this story doesn't mean anything. Oh, we're in another universe, whatever, we're gonna come back to ours and it's just gonna be fine, kind of stuff. But I will say I have my list. This whole month is just fun, is what I'll say. Okay. I've been excited to cover this month in particular for a while. So excited that I'll actually go first.
By all means, sir.
I actually go first this month, and I will go first doing what you want to hear, which is me evangelize for the Ultimate Spider-Man series that is currently going on. Who would have thought, ladies and gentlemen, that this would have been a good series? But Ultimate Spider-Man number 9 comes out on September 25th, 2024, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Checchetto. Guys, come here, come closer. I am a Spider-Man fan. Probably right up there. I would say Spider-Man and Batman are right up there with me as far as like my favorite superheroes, mostly because they were introduced to me in my formative years. Those animated series are both amazing, both colored in so much of what those characters are, as far as like the rogues gallery, their allies, their nemesis, the origin story, all that's there. I've watched the films, I've read the comics. There's so much Spider-Man out there. Sometimes it can feel a bit claustrophobic because sometimes the stories are, how do I say this without seeming negative, but just very thin in its in what matters, why it matters, why the book was written, kind of stuff. And it's hard because he's, quite frankly, Marvel's most popular character, and the idea of keeping him constantly in rotation is always something that has to be tantalizing when you realize how much money he brings in. But I was reading this and I said to myself, I can't believe I'm smiling from ear to ear rereading an origin story for Spider-Man. I know this story. I don't know this story, particularly. And I think that's one of the best parts about this is how well it uses your knowledge of what you think you know of this universe to color things into the future. But in the first issue of this story, which was something you recommended months ago when this series first launched, there's just so much heart and there's just so much of an idea of like, this is not the story that you know. And as it continues, you just fall in love with these characters, the way Jonathan Hickman writes them, the way the art works. There's one of the things that I think a lot of people miss in the origin story portion is the fun. Before it all becomes very grave and dangerous, there's a level of fun. There's a level of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And we were trying to figure this whole thing out. Mm-hmm. And you deal with that with Peter for the first time since possibly Ultimate Spider-Man 20 years ago, which was the first time since possibly 1960s of dealing with him going, oh, I'm kind of messing up this. I'm figuring this all out for the first time. What does my suit look like? What is my name? What is, why am I doing this? All of that stuff and more is spoken about in this. But in particular, I was reading, I've read, I'm now caught up. And so they're now introducing the Ultimate Sinister Six. and
Yes.
it's not the kind of guys everyone would be thinking that it is. So it's interesting to see that as well. And it's also interesting to see what I perceive, and this may be a very shallow interpretation, but it's almost as if um, Kingpin, I guess, oh no, not Kingpin. It's almost as if the maker has taken Doctor Doom slash Jonathan Hickman's plan of reorchestrating the universe to a point that benefits them the most, uh, and done it long form, right? And the thing
Yeah.
is, like, I can't blame Maker for getting it from Doom because they both were made from Hickman, or they both got those ideas from Hickman, and he's the one who wrote the book. So I liked that element of that story, and I even liked it when it was in the House of M. Right, this idea of like this is something's not right here, and someone has orchestrated this very particularly to not make us question it. But there's obviously something not right here,
Right.
and going through that in this has been a hell of a fun. Getting past the whole like super identity thing really early. Like Grace of God, they did that. Minor spoilers with stuff like that. The introducing of the Green Goblin, which I won't spoil who that is in here, and giving him more of a bit of a thing that I'm just a crazy businessman kind of deal. Even though
Right.
he is a crazy businessman, it's everything you know, but it's a fresh coat of paint on it. I can only imagine this is how people felt when the original Ultimate Spider-Man dropped, where it's like I know enough about this to enjoy this blindly, but the new elements that they are introducing to it are making it so interesting that I can't wait to continue.
Right.
Um,
I mean, I'm there with you. To me, this is more, and dare I say, more exciting than the original Ultimate Spider-Man run because the original Ultimate Spider-Man run, the idea behind that was what if Peter Parker became Spider-Man nowadays? And at that point, it was the early 2000s. So the idea that this teenager has the modern technology and how modern technology would affect everything around him, how the villains would come about, and how everything would happen. This story is not a teenager. This is a
no,
grown, married, with children Peter Parker, right? And that changes the dynamic completely. And we're on an Earth where the United States is not the United States that we know. It's not filled with heroes that we know. The heroes are viewed as villains. You know, it's almost very boys-esque, this universe where the villains are manipulating everything and they put themselves to seem like the heroes and they make the
hmm
heroes out to be the villains. So it this whole universe, issue to issue, is something completely new. You know, you get those tastes of familiarity,
yeah,
but it's still a whole fresh take on everything. It's a great universe, guys. The Ultimate Universe is 8, 9 issues old now. Some of them even less than that. So still a great time to jump on, and this is a great jumping on issue for Ultimate Spider-Man.
yeah. I would sing more praises, but I would just be spoiling it. Can't wait to have this as something we cover on the cast, so we can just fully
Yeah.
get into it. But yeah, man, Ultimate Spider-Man, everything the Cog said when he recommended it is true, and it continues to speak through. And yeah, it's gonna be hard as a new reader to come in to Marvel and not pick up an excellent book written by Jonathan Hickman. Like that's gonna be like just the new normal. And I don't know how he has all these stories in him. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that I don't get. If you've read all of the Fantastic Four that he wrote, like you were talking about in the last episode, if you read all of the Avengers that he wrote, if you read all of the other, just everything is so chunky. The Krakoa stuff, bro. We have infographics, all these things that he thought about and broke down, and he still has more. He still has more of that inside of him.
Yep.
People, people go their whole lives hoping that they write one good book, one book that people remember, that bring them up, they bring up to cons and go, I really like this book. It helped me, and connect with my brother, or help me, I gave this to my wife or whatever. And this guy's now has created whole characters, whole cloth, and concepts that people are gonna remember forever. Really digging this Ultimate Spider-Man. I think I have said I liked it. I think it's what I said.
And you're not alone in that. And guys, just get this book. Even when I don't recommend it on my month to month, it's on my reading list. It's a great book. You should be reading it.
Yeah.
And my number one pick for this month is going back again to that X-Men world, guys. I'm sad to see Krakoa go, but I'm excited for where we're going. And my first pick for September is going to be Exceptional X-Men #1 by Eve L. Ewing and Carmen Canero.
Okay.
This book looks interesting, mostly because of the characters that are in this book. Kitty Pryde and Emma Frost, the last 20 years, especially during the Krakoa era, have really become an interesting dynamic. I, you know, Kitty Pryde first showed up, she almost joined the Hellions. She was
Hmm.
almost on that side. She was almost on the Emma Frost side of things, and that could have led to things being very different. Instead, she was on the opposite side, and that dynamic was interesting. Fast forward to the Krakoa age, and her and Emma Frost are heading up the Marauders in where she's on the ship and Emma's like funding it. They had an interesting dynamic there, right? You got the super rich, uptight, prissy girl teaming up with the, I hate to say lowly, but regular. She's like the everyday girl, but she's still Kitty, and Kitty has all her own complexities.
Kate.
I'm sorry, Kate. She is now Kate. She is now Kate Pride. You are absolutely correct.
we just
And so
read we
that,
just read Trial of Jean Grey, where she's the professor of the younger Cyclops, the ones that come from the past.
yes,
Cyclops,
yes,
Beast, and all of them, they
yes,
all have like
yes,
Power Ranger outfits where they all have like singlets with different colors.
hmm,
I'm like, what is going? I missed this
yes.
entire
Wow. Yeah,
thing here.
yeah.
But our Kate has gone a long way. Is what we're the
Yes,
point we're trying
yes,
to prove.
and now where they have her at the end of the Cocoa age, she wants to be just a regular person. She's working at a diner. She's in the human world. She's just trying to be regular. But when you're great, you get pulled into these situations, right? And it seems like her team is going to be trying to help mutants who are just out there, who just want to survive. It's kind of a little bit of like NYX, but at the same time, she's going to have White Queen still or Emma Frost working behind the scenes and probably
Right.
trying to pull her into some kind of another Hellions Generation X sort of thing. They're going to be introducing brand new mutants. There are three mutants they've already announced that are going to be on this team. One mutant is going to be a character named Bronze, a metallic mutant that's going to have like a whip. Axo, a mutant that can mess with your emotions, and Melee, who is just going to be like the super fighter character. These are three brand new mutants. And a lot of times when you get these new books, you get an opportunity to highlight your own characters. And Eve L. Ewing, she has been doing some great things. She was writing Ironheart, which is still a relatively new character in in her book, and she even recently had a Black Panther run where she got a chance to highlight some characters that she wanted to highlight. This is she's new to comics on a whole, but she's done some interesting work, and I'm going to give her a chance, especially when handling these characters. And Marvel seems to have her backing because this is going to be the third premiere book. We're going to have X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, Exceptional X-Men. So I hate to, how long of a run will Marvel give Eve on this book? I don't know because it's going to depend on me and you liking it, me and you enjoying it, me and you buying this book, right? And I want
Yeah.
to give it a shot because this is an interesting cast of characters. Because we're dealing with new characters, you won't have to rely on knowledge of 60 years of these characters' histories. Like
Yeah.
because it's hard for a new reader to pick up X-Men, and even though it's a new #1, oh, you don't know the last 50
Yeah,
years of
that
this
guy's
character's.
brother died, and that guy's clone sister is actually the leader of the. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. You're
Someone
getting a
broke
bunch
down
of.
Psylocke for me the other day,
Oh my God.
and
Somebody
I went, wait, what?
somebody asked me the same thing. They were like, "Yo, can you explain Psylocke and Quanon to me?" And I'm like, "I'll try. I'll try. It's dumb. I'm sorry. It's dumb. It's
Right,
dumb.
right. But I
Yeah.
was just like, I
Yeah.
didn't know that was a thing. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
It
I
was
used
it
to
was
think.
bad
I think.
enough. It was bad enough, the whole body swap and then her becoming staying in the ninja body. But then the
Yeah.
fact that they recently brought back the other
Brought
character
back
and
the
now
other
you got
body.
both of them. Now you got both of them.
Yeah. Very strange.
It's very strange. So, but here we're getting a bunch of brand new characters. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up having some tie to other characters. Oh yeah, it turns out Bronze is like Colossus's stepsister or brother from another mother. So who knows? Just stuff like that. That stuff
Yeah.
happens. But you're still getting new characters, a new writer who I believe really speaks to the modern audiences. Someone who's in the midst because she's a professor. She's a professor in sociology, so
Oh,
she's in
okay.
the midst of all this. These I hate new ways of thinking, with with whole things like sexuality and gender and how people identify with themselves. So a lot of those ideals are going to be brought to the forefront in this book, along with the dynamic between Emma Frost and Kate Pride. So that's why I'm looking forward to trying this book out, and I hope everybody else tries it out too because it's going to speak new thoughts and new ideas to a lot of readers.
I feel like also it can't be easy being an X-Men under Emma's rule. Uh, the idea of the title being Exceptional X-Men, is that sort of what she's hoping from this team? Is that sort of what she believes is going to be? There's a lot of rookies on this team. It's going to be a lot of rookie mistakes. Who's gonna come on them harder, Professor Pride or Professor Frost? Like and Emma, it has become such a interesting character over the last 20 years as she's really embraced this sort of headmistress role of helping younger mutants. It's something that she cares about truly, but you also know she has the other side of her. There's a little bit of vainness to her. There's a little bit of duplicity to her. That's the Emma Frost we know and love. But now she has kids. These are her kids now. So is she going to, is she going to put all that bad stuff away, or is she the one to punch out the other mom at the soccer game because they were talking stuff crap about one of her kids here? It'll be very interesting to see, and I'm looking at them now. I like the character designs for Axo, Bronze, and Melee. And
Yeah,
yeah, you got to try something. You got to try something.
that's
That's
it.
the whole
And
that's
if
the whole
it
point.
That's it. And jump on. If you want something new, take something different, jump on.
New
What's your second
character,
pick?
well, new characters can be hard to latch on to, especially if they're new characters on a very established book like the X-Men. It existed, like I said again, 60 years of X-Men, and then you pop up a new character, and now you have to decide whether or not you like them or not. Talk about some big shoes to fill. They've introduced a character called Trinity over in DC Comics, and Trinity is the daughter of Wonder Woman. And to be honest, I haven't read much about her. A lot of what has been printed about her has been in the backs of Wonder Woman comics. But they're coming out with a Trinity special, World's Finest, that collects all these. And just from what I've been able to see, her interaction with my boys, the Super Sons, Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne,
Wayne.
these three are a hoot. They're just really fun together. They're really dynamic together. They're really funny together. I didn't think that those two would have needed a third, but she is a great addition to that team, and she takes out the air from both of their tires in a way that only she can. I really like the voice that they've been able to give her in this, and I've been hearing tremendous stuff about the World's Finest run in general. Batman Superman World's Finest. Been
Yeah.
hearing great, great, great things going on over there. So I wanted something that was a little bit more lighthearted. I wanted something that was a little bit more fun, and I wanted something that introduced me to Trinity. So I think this Trinity special World's Finest that comes out on August 12th. Oh no, for order cutoff comes out on September 4th.
There you go.
Is something that I'm pretty interested in. Yeah. Oh,
No,
Trinity.
I mean, DC has been trying to expand Wonder Woman's universe
Yeah.
a lot the last few years. They've added the Nubian Wonder Woman.
Yes.
I forget,
Yep.
I think her name is Nubia.
Yeah.
A character who existed in the Wonder Woman lore, but they never really pushed to the forefront until recently.
Right.
They even had the Amazonian Wonder Woman show up recently, Yara Flor, and it seemed like she
I
was gonna
love
be
Yara
like,
Floor. What
I know, I
happened to
loved her.
Yara Floor?
I was so excited for that character. They gave her her own series and it just fell flat, and now she's been whisked away, and now we're getting Trinity, the daughter of Wonder Woman, because it seems like all right, they gotta just. It sounds like they're making her. another skin version of Wonder Woman. It's kind of like, oh, it's the same character but with a different skin. And I
But
hope that's not what
that
it is.
Sandsmark character didn't work, right? They tried her,
The
tried Donna
who?
Troy for a while. Donna Troy,
Sandsmark?
yeah. What's her first name? The Wonder Girl, the other Wonder Girl, the blonde Wonder Girl.
I
Oh
know Donna
gosh,
Troy. I don't know the blonde Wonder Girl. I'm not familiar with her.
The Wonder Girl on Teen Titans. T-shirt. She rocks a T-shirt, gauntlets, jeans. Uh, Cassie
Wow.
Sandsmark. Cassie Sandsmark. You gotta get on your DC, bro. No, I'm fucking with you.
I do.
I'm messing with
No,
you.
you are
She's
right.
just
You are right. You are right.
she's just a blonde. She's a blonde. She's the one
I'll,
in Young Justice. She's the Wonder Girl in Young Justice. But yeah, just look up Wonder Girl, Cassie, DC, and you'll see.
wow.
Yeah, so they've tried for a very long time to pass down
Long
that
time.
mantle, or at least give her some other sort of a character. And with Trinity, it's always ahead. The kids are always older, so you're almost in a grandfathered time where everyone's just okay with it. It's not this whole
All
big
right.
introduction kind of deal. So that's made it a little bit easier. But I do miss Yara. I miss Yara. I'll tell you. I'm not. And
Yeah.
Donna Troy is the Psylocke of DC. You want to talk about
Oh
somebody
yeah. Oh
who's
my.
had, yeah, yes,
Like what happened there? Like Donna Troy was like the Red Arrow, the Robin to Wonder
yeah,
Woman for so long, and then it was just like,
yeah.
and then like 20 years later, let's bring her back, but not do stuff with her. It's like,
No,
come on,
no.
DC. I don't. Is it that the fans really want Diana that badly, and they only will accept Diana, or is the
DC, I
DC
think, is
just
stuck in that world, possibly more than Marvel is, of having to get the original. I mean, you were just talking about it in our last episode with Kyle Rayner in Zero Hour and all that stuff. You get somebody, you get excited for someone to take over the mantle, for the ice cream to taste a little bit different, and then they're like, "Nope, we're bringing back classic Coke." You know what I'm saying? We're bringing back Hal, we're bringing back Barry, we're bringing back Peter, we're bringing back. You know what I'm saying? And I hope you had fun. I will talk about one of these characters later, but I loved Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne's Batman and Robin.
Mhm.
That
But
dynamic was different than the other Batman and Robin, but you were always waiting for the time where Bruce would come back and thus everything gets set back to the status quo.
but that's what I'm saying though. It's interesting. I feel like every character has given the mantle over to somebody for an extended amount of time. Superman, at one point, they had four different Supermen while Superman was dead, and
Yeah.
that went on for like over a year. Or Azrael and Dick Grayson have taken on the mantle of Batman for extended periods of time. The
Hmm.
Flash has gone from person to person. Green Lantern has gone from person to person. But for some reason, when it comes to Wonder
There's
Woman, it's like, yo, we want our Diana. That's it.
only
I
one.
can't.
There can be only one.
Yara Flor was around for like 9 issues.
Hmm.
Nubia was around for like 3 issues. Diana. We only want Diana. It's like it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So we'll see if Trinity lasts longer than that. See how it goes.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
Well,
crossed.
something. Bring back Yara. I was more than happy with Yara. She was
Gang,
great.
gang. I'm at.
So
What do you got up next?
so for me, I'm going back into a well that you've not really heard me discuss,
Zeb
but a
Wells.
well that
Oh,
no, we talked about him last month,
okay,
didn't we?
okay, okay,
I'm
okay,
pretty
okay.
sure. I'm pretty sure people are still upset that I had the nerve to bring up Zeb Wells in a positive light.
Those comics are polarizing.
Don't do that. Goddamn dad jokes.
Damn right.
No, no, but see, Disney has this other property that we've been getting a lot of mixed reviews on. But for me, since they've taken over the Star Wars universe as far as comics goes, it has for the most part been exceptionally entertaining. And Star Wars, the book itself, has gone now over 100 issues underneath the Marvel Comics umbrella, and it has been solid from month to month. An
Yeah.
absolutely great book. And now we're at the end of the Charles Soule run, where he's connecting the end of Empire all the way to the beginning of Return of the Jedi. And that's what they've
Okay.
been doing in the last 50 issues. And my next pick is Star Wars number 50, where all his big story is now coming to an end. Where it's going to go straight from this story ending. Basically, you can then just watch Return of the Jedi and see how it all connects.
Yeah.
And here we're getting the what the main story that he's been telling here is how it is that Luke went from being the guy who gets his ass kicked at the end of Empire by getting his hand cut off to this super Jedi at the beginning of Return of the Jedi who walks into Jabba's palace and takes down this whole this galactic mob boss's
I was
whole
say Epstein
uh,
Island.
yeah, exactly. Takes it down in like in what seems like a day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's a story we've been getting mostly over these last 50 issues, along with understanding why is it that Lando has become so trustworthy. How Leia has become less and less just your prissy princess. Now she's even more and more of a badass to the point where she's breaking into Jabba's palace, holding a thermal detonator, talking about I'm gonna blow up this whole place unless you free my boy.
Yeah.
So we get these stories fleshed out, and that's one of the things I've been really enjoying with the Marvel comic Star Wars books is you're getting more of this stuff that's fleshed, more of these things fleshed out. Even the introduction of a yellow lightsaber. In the pages of this, you get a yellow lightsaber because a lot of people, of course, complained when Rey got her yellow lightsaber in the sequel trilogy. Oh,
Yeah.
yellow! We've never seen a yellow lightsaber. This is this is Disney and Marvel's Star Wars' way of saying, "Hey, look, yellow lightsabers
They've
have
existed.
were
Yeah,
they've
they're
existed.
a thing.
They were
Don't
a
get
thing, and here's where they were.
don't
So
get your panties in a wad.
it's been a lot of good fun storytelling, and I'm excited to see how it ends and how this wraps up and takes us into the Return of the Jedi era, and also where something ends, the next thing it begins. Because now what is going to be the flagship Star Wars book after this? That, as far as I know, nothing's been announced. So after this, it's going to be like, are we going to get a book that fleshes out after Jedi? Are we going to get books that flesh out more of the High Republic, which Marvel's already producing those books. So it's just interesting to see where Star Wars is going to go from here, and who's gonna even be at the helm of it. Because as far as I know, I've not heard anything, but I'm excited to see where this ends. And guys, if you're not reading it and you're looking for good Star Wars stuff, especially after I know a lot of people have that bad taste in their mouth from the Acolyte series, dive into these Star Wars books.
We covered maybe the first 2 or 3 volumes of that Charles Soule Darth Vader comic on this. Exceptional stuff. Made me
Mhm.
feel things about the character I never did just watching the film. I think he has a mastery of what he's taking on over there, but I think also simultaneously, as well as fleshing out all those other characters that you were talking about, this is very much a Darth Vader story that he's been driving, getting behind that mask. I read the beginning of that and I said, I'm almost certain, as somebody who does not consider himself a Star Wars fan, I don't dislike it, but I don't follow it enough to want to consider myself a fan. So in my mind, I'm like, I have to believe that these comics is what people thought they were getting when they were getting the prequel trilogy. Like when they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go back and show you how he became Darth Vader." I don't think him getting burned and putting on the outfit is how he became Darth Vader. I think from the outfit moving forward, the stuff that
Right,
we see in this comic is how
right,
he becomes Darth Vader, and it has some heartbreaking twists and turns. You don't. He's not somebody who just goes evil completely and becomes Space Hitler overnight. Like you see him battling with it and battling it with within himself, and at moments him considering betraying the Emperor. And I think from what I read, that's one of the most interesting parts of where this culmination that you're talking about. Not only do we have to get some of these characters to whether we know them in the film, we have to get Darth to a point that he's willing to throw the Emperor over over
my
that
shaft,
fucking thing.
shaft.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeet, no
and
yeet.
it's yeah, and it's with these little twists and these little betrayals that have been stacking up. Everything that you've been reading in this run has been stacking up to the moment that makes everything make sense once you turn on Return of the Jedi. So what a task! Again, inenviable. I wouldn't want to try to do this. Color in between the lines of these movies that people are very sensitive about, extremely sensitive about. Um,
Are they?
but at one point, that book was on my list as well because of how monumentous it is, and it's like I said, 50 issues. on this comic. That's hard, man. Not everyone gets 50 issues. So
Nope.
congratulations to him and congratulations to that run, but it will be definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So where are you taking this, Don?
So I am picking what is being called the sleaziest and scummiest special that DC has to offer. They are coming out with a special called the Lobo Cancellation Special.
Hmm.
That is going to be the scummiest, most skull crunching, crotch punting, and excrement asteroid filled comic of the year. You're gonna be praying to
Wow.
God that we pulp this sleaze fest before your kids read it. So,
So I was gonna say this is definitely something we want to hand to like a 6-year-old, right?
oh, 100%. It comes out on the 25th of September. It's written by Kyle Starks with art by Kyle Hotz. I've always liked Lobo as a character. I always like when he showed up,
Hmm.
but I've never read anything specifically him, unless he had like a one shot in a bigger story, a bigger crossover, like a Forever Evil Lobo or whatever, even though that doesn't
Right.
exist. But the idea that they're going out of their way on purpose to make the scummiest, sleaziest. I've seen some of the stuff this guy's done. He genocides planets. Like this guy's absolutely ridiculous with his space chopper and his hooks and his blood. We don't talk about the new 52 clean cut Twilight version of the Lobo character that was not well received. But I can see this being DC's very calculated way of positioning Lobo to be their Deadpool in a way, and thus creating interest for the character when they do, in fact, reintroduce him into their movie universe, most likely being played by Jason Momoa. And so if this is just a one shot that is just being giving the pure excuse of seeing what this character who never really had restraints on him, right? What does this
No.
look like even more restrained, or even less restrained, I should say? What are all of us unfortunate bastards? What are we in for when we when we get into the cancellation special? And the idea that it's called cancellation special again. What does sleazy mean to Lobo? What does scummy mean to Lobo? We already know what crotch punting means, but I want to see all that in all of its gory and glory, or its gory glory, when it drops next month. So yeah, pure fun.
No.
Pick Lobo cancellation special number one.
No, Lobo is always a fun character to read or even just watch. Because I mean, if some people only know Lobo from the Superman animated series or the Justice League animated series, I
That
believe he
hair,
showed up
man.
a couple of times. That hair, that voice that sounds like he's just been chewing on cigars his whole life.
Yeah.
This character is a sleazy character. I mean, he he's known for being immortal because the devil wouldn't let him die because he
Yep.
went to hell. He gets kicked out of hell, gets kicked out of heaven, and then God and the devil just basically say, you know what, make him immortal. That way we never have to deal with him. He then he before that he like you said, not only does he genocide planets, he genocided his own planet because he wanted to be the last of his kind.
That's true.
This is a nasty, dirty, filthy bounty hunter character who only cares about himself, but at the same time can go toe to toe Superman.
Yep.
So yeah, if you want to read about a character that you really shouldn't like, but at the same time you keep one eye open to keep watching what he's doing, this sounds like the book you got to pick up. So now I didn't even catch this in the solicitations. I'm highly impressed with this one. This sounds like fun, especially a nice little one shot, something to kind of whet your appetite, and yeah, maybe get people excited for what seems to be the obvious thing that's happening is that Jason Momoa is probably going to end up being this character in James Gunn's DC EU.
Yeah. I always thought he had a lot of similarities to Wolverine, but I
Yeah,
guess Wolverine was created before he was. But I wonder if some of the other rougher cigar smoking, rubber stuff came from came a motorcycle riding came from Lobo. I think they'd be fast friends. Is what I'm trying to say. I think Lobo and Logan would be
yeah,
fast friends.
I can see that. I can
He'd
see
get
that.
annoyed. He'd get annoyed really quickly. But yeah, yeah, I would
I
check
can see
that
that.
out. What do you got on your list?
My list is goes back to this is a name that almost it should just be featured on every episode. It feels like, but I mean the guy he hits it out of the park every time. So I'm gonna always ride this name. My man Jeff Lemire. He's got a new book coming out called Minor Arcana. It's
Hmm.
going to be underneath the, I forget what publishing company is producing it. Help me out here if you remember, Don.
It's everything I'm looking up is putting up tarot cards. Boom
Uh,
Studios. Boom, boom,
Boom
boom.
Studios. Yeah, Jeff. That's one thing that's amazing with Jeff. He works with every publisher. He'll make an image book. He'll make a Boom book. He'll make. He'll even produce some Marvel stuff. It all depends on who wants to produce what for him. This guy just does amazing work, and a lot of times when he works all by himself, because like last month we talked about him making this, continuing his Bone Orchard mythos with Andrea Sorrentino. He also does his own stuff, such as Royal City and a book that came out not too long ago, Fish Flies. Now he's got
Mhm.
Minor Arcana, which is looks like it's going to be this crazy I story about a girl, Teresa. She's a small town psychic fraud, right? And she returns to home to care for her sick mother. However, she doesn't want to, and then she goes back home, and it seems like now she's getting caught up in magic. It almost sounds like a basic plot,
Yeah,
and most people's hands it is, but because it's Jeff Lemire, it's not going to be a basic plot. I mean, oh, this is the man behind Sweet Tooth, another story that
yeah,
he did
yeah.
all by himself. You know what I mean? So in his hands, I strongly believe even the most basic story is going to be something that's going to just pull the emotions out of you, right? How many times have we gone through books like Ascender, Primordial, and we
Hmm.
just at the end of it, we're just like, oh my, we just went through this emotional trench, and now we're
Yeah.
coming out and we're just like finding out new things about ourselves. That's what Jeff does. I don't know where he gets it from. I don't know how he's experienced all the things he's experienced to put it into these books, but this book has me excited mostly just because the name Jeff Lemire. So
Yeah.
even though and if you guys have been following along with us or we've always known about Jeff Lemire, you know this is going to be a good book. So I'm going to tell you right now, look for Boom Studios and look for Minor Arcana.
A couple of other things that might get you excited for this book. I've been doing some research on it. One thing is, according to Lemire, he's already plotted 22 issues of this story, which means that this is one of those stories that is escaping the writer. It's literally pouring out of him. He just has so many ideas and so many ideas of what the directions that it can go, which I always love. You know, that means that they know the story, they know where they want to go with it. All his stories, regardless of whether they're horror, sci-fi, fantastical, they all have heart, and I know that this one's gonna have heart in it. But like, this is the line that kind of um piqued my interest, and I'm almost certain it'll pique yours as well. According to him, this is a quote: "If Black Hammer was my love letter to superhero comics I grew up reading, then Minor Arcana is my love letter to the classic Vertigo comics of my youth, but
Ooh.
all filtered through my style." So we're talking Constantine, we're talking Sandman,
Preacher.
under a Preacher, under Lemire, like his version of what all that would look. And when you think about it, all three of those books share this idea of combining the fantastical with the mundane, right?
Mhm.
Like a regular dude smoking a cigarette. Okay, I'll do this exorcism. Give me a second. I'm almost done. You understand, kind of
I'll
stuff.
be right there.
or fucking death herself and Dream sitting on a park bench feeding pigeons, talking about how futile life is. Stuff
Yeah,
like
right.
that. So that all that gravitas are then handled by who I've already said is probably the most cerebral writer I've ever read, Jeff Lemire. Like, I'm in the bag for this already. I really want it. I'm looking
Yeah.
at some of the artwork too. It looks really, really cool.
It's Jeff's very unique style that I know is very hit or miss for people. Some people are completely turned off by his style, but
Hmm.
for me, his style is so dynamic, but at the same time, um, I don't know how to just full of melancholy that you
Yeah,
feel
Tim
this
Burton
in.
almost esque,
Yeah,
like those
like
kind of like sullen faces and dark shadows and spindly, spindly arms and spindly legs.
yeah,
Yeah.
that it almost looks like, some people might say like a 5-year-old drew it, but you can almost see that there's a level of intention behind that. It wants to make you feel that way, because I feel for me when I see something that is dynamic, but at the same time so simple. It pulls me in and makes me feel like, oh, it resonates with me more. Where
Hmm.
it's almost lacks that uncanny valley, as people refer to it as. Where sometimes when people's art is so good, it's like, oh, I can't even believe this. But
Yeah,
since I almost feel like I could draw this and look at it like, wow, I could feel it. I feel it more, especially
yeah.
with his words connected to it. It's amazing. It's amazing.
We talk oftentimes. I mean, I've been having this discussion in many different forms in many different groups about how art and animation was veering for a very long time for realism. But realism is only going to get to the point of pictures, and then that's boring. So you ultimately, I think we've hit very close to the peak of what that realism could look like. And the things that impress me the most are the ones that you like to make drawn art realistic. We're playing a camera's game, and the camera will always win, in my opinion. Whereas art can do things that the camera could never, you know? Whereas, the person's mind can do things that a camera could never craft, and no matter how many different settings that you use it on. So I always feel like art and artists, it behooves them to play into the rules of animation more than to play into trying to make this look a one for one, 100% real. I think of things like Spider-Verse. Look at the dimensions of some of those people's bodies. That stuff's not realistic. Look at the Kingpin in Spider-Verse. He's freaking huge, but
Yeah.
he's huge to give you that feeling.
Right.
Doesn't matter that he wouldn't fit in his car or probably can't put on his clothes. None of that matters. It's more about what the art says than the functionality of it. So,
Right.
like I said, this doesn't bother me at all. It just shows me that this is kind of his flair for all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I'm going to be picking this up. Minor Arcana.
Definitely. Martin Arcane. Jeff
I'm gonna
Lemire. Shocker. Shocker.
I'm gonna give you a rando book I've picked up. Knights versus Samurai. Knights versus Samurai. I was trying to find out who. Everywhere I was looking was giving me issues in finding out who was the actual artist behind this. But the writer is supposed to be David Dalsmalchin. If you don't know David Dalsmalchin, Francesco Mattina is the artist, or at least the cover artist. But it is I believe Federico Mele is the actual
Yeah.
artist.
As the
Uh,
actual, yeah.
David Dalsmalchin is an actor, a Hollywood actor and writer. I believe he wrote and directed his most recent film, Last Night with the Devil. He is Polka Dot Man. He is the guy who talks about Baba Yaga and Ant-Man.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
He,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
he's the guy from The Dark Knight that goes crazy and Two-Face goes to shoot him in the face.
Yeah, no, I heard that movie Last Night with the Devil was amazing. I've
It's really
actually.
good. It's really
Oh, you
good.
saw it?
It
You saw it?
Yeah, it's of a
Okay.
particular taste, but I thought it was really well done.
Okay. Cool,
Um,
cool, cool.
and he's somebody who's been all over DC stuff. Like I said, playing Polka Dot Man. He was in The Flash. He played Abracadabra. But they're doing. Do you remember there was a series that was like this where they would pit the best warriors of a certain
Yes. Yes.
country or class or history, warriors in
Yes,
history
I
or something like that,
something
or
like that. Yeah, where they'd be like, oh, the a ninja versus a barbarian, stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
basically what they're doing here. It's knights versus samurai. And they're taking things from each lore, like dragons from knighthood, and, blood oaths and vengeance and all that kind of stuff from samurai, savage monsters, skillful warriors. And to make this book, he sought the guidance of Todd McFarlane. Todd helped him craft this story, as well as, like I said, Federico, who does all the art for this. This is going to be a multi-issue story. I want to say it's going to be about 4 issues. Um, and he says, thanks to my consultant Teresa Matsura of Uncanny Japan, we will be showing a clash and connection between feudal England and feudal Japan that has never been seen before. So yeah, just looking at both of these two different, it's almost like a crossover. If you just forget that these were real people, you can have a lot of fun. Just trying to guess who would win in a group of people, knights versus samurai. All like I was talking about in my Predator and Black Panther thing. All very specific religions, very specific rites, very specific rituals. How these are supposed to be the best of the best. If you've been knighted, if you have become samurai, you have reached the top of your class. And what happens when those people meet each other? Who comes out of that alive? So the idea that an actor is behind this was never written before. The idea that he pulled Todd McFarlane to help him to do this, I think is super interesting. And the fact that research has been gone into this, I thought was cool. So yeah, I'm picking Knights versus Samurai #1. It comes out from Image Comics, and it comes out September 25th, 2024.
No, I mean you definitely piqued my interest with this. This is a weird book and something to highlight also. Not a barrier, not a huge barrier of entry because this is a
No,
2.99 book.
yeah,
That's unheard of.
no.
Unheard of
Everything I'm
nowadays.
looking at now, I'm like, what the hell? I really wanted that.
Yeah, like 3.99 or higher. I'm calling you out, Marvel. For this 4.99 thing is ridiculous.
It
But
is.
something, and this I bet you this is a testament to Todd McFarlane. Todd, yeah, maybe he's not producing the Jonathan Hickman or Warren Ellis level of writing as far as his stories go, but they're entertaining. His Spawn universe is wonderfully entertaining, and it's up to like 10 books now.
And it's
And
self-sufficient, like he could keep all that running in his own little world, and no one gonna
ex
bother
ex
him.
exactly, and all those books, I think all of them are pretty much 2.99 with a cardstock cover. How come he's able to do that at the independent level, but the big boys, Marvel and DC, still are churning out 3 and 4.99 books?
Yeah,
And this book right here, normally I wouldn't probably look at it twice, but after the way you broke it down, and then 2.99, come on, like
yeah.
what do I have to lose?
And we've already seen there's a movie of Cowboys versus Aliens, so who knows what'll happen
I like
next?
Knights vs Samurai. I like this idea.
Yeah,
This is gonna be a fun book. This is definitely gonna be something we just sit down and just like laugh about. But who knows? It could end up being that book that's like, yo, can't you believe how great this book was? How funny is it to be like, yo, Eisner, a nominated Knights and Samurai, right?
yeah,
It
100%.
could happen. It could happen. So awesome. I dig that pick. I like this. I
That's my
like this.
dark. Even though it's from Image, that's my dark horse of the month. It's Night to
I
Samurai.
see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
me, my next pick is an entire trade paperback. It was a book that I kind of wanted to put on our list before. I just never got up there, and I was waiting for the trade to come out because I knew it'd be coming out soon. From IDW, it's a book called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. It was a short, I believe it was 5 issues. It
Hmm.
it it came out over the last few months. It came out. IDW usually puts out its trades immediately. This story is a lot like a lot of other books we've talked about, whether it was Stray Dogs or Feral or Uncanny Valley, where the world looks kitty-like, but the story is not at all like this kid-like story.
I'm
So in
looking through
this
covers now. Right now, this is ridiculous.
in in this world, the world looks very much like a Sesame Street world, right? These fun, happy characters. They all kind of look like living Jim Henson puppets. And in this world, everything's
I would even say like Richard Scarry. Is that the name of the guy that used to do like the animatronic animals and stuff like that? Those books when I was growing up. Let me see if
oh
that
yeah,
was the name of the dude.
I'm not familiar. But no, so in this world, it all looks very happy and cheerful and almost like you're turning on a PBS cartoon or something.
Look up Richard Scarry books on your side if you can when you get a chance.
Okay. But so in this world, you get this veil, right? But there's apparently this one particular character who's very Dexter-like. So this character goes out of their way to kill other characters, people in their world, and they do it in a Dexter-like way where it's like to satiate an appetite. There's this
Oh dear.
low key serial killer, and they kill these people, they bury their body, they do all types of weird stuff because they're just like feeding that need. But
Hmm.
then one day, someone gets murdered that this character has nothing to do with. And it seems like they have their MO is just like his. So now he's got to look at it and go, one, who is this other person? And two, they're going to screw this whole thing up for me because some of this might come my way. So I got to find out who this person is to one, stop them, and also figure out like why is there another person like me? What is going on here? So
Yeah.
the story that this tells, especially how it's veiled in this, like I said, this kid-like way. It just had that dichotomy is so much fun to play with. Like we've covered Stray Dogs. I know you've been reading Feral. When
Hmm.
you have it conveyed in this manner, but dealing with these graphic details, it's such a fun thing to read. And now to just get it in a trade paperback where this is it, 5 issues, nice little fun thing to read. If you like Dexter and if you just like having those fun stories with this veil of childlike innocence, then this is the book you got to read, because I'm going to be definitely putting it on my shelf.
The title, the cover, everything you just said makes it sound like it's right up my alley. I love subverting expectations. That's what I love. Again, when you read certain comic books, you're like, okay, that's the good guy, that's the bad guy, that's the secret. That's the MacGuffin that they have to get. But with this stuff, and like I said, looking through, I'm surprised it's gotten off my radar as long as it has, to be honest. But I'm definitely gonna pick it up. I'm definitely gonna check it out because I think, yeah, you lead people down the right you lead people down with their expectations by looking at the imagery. But then, like, I'm looking at, like, some of these animals are chopped up into pieces and stuff. It's really, really sick. But I'll be checking that out. And that's Chip Zdarsky, right?
No, this is all done by written and drawn by Patrick Horvath. I've never heard
Patrick
of them
Horvath.
before. Never heard of them since.
Interesting. Interesting.
But because of this book, I will definitely be looking for that name from now on.
Yes, yes, I will. And now this is collected in trade paperback. You can go through the whole thing without having to be biting your nails waiting for every single issue.
That's it.
And my last pick is something that is finishing up as well. The Boy Wonder, number 5, DC Comics Black Label, written by Juni Ba, with Chris O'Halloran doing the art. I I I gotta find a way to describe this book, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm an issue away from catching up, but it is the story of Damian Wayne told in a third person, as if you were reading like a fantasy book, like if you're reading like Robin Hood or something like that. It's like, and then the boy does this, and the boy
Right.
whatever. So like, I literally, this is what I'll do. I'm gonna send you eventually this these pages or whatever. But like, it goes, there was a king who protected his kingdom with his 3 adopted sons. The first was kind and brave, the second was brash and rageful, the third resourceful and clever. Then one day the king's long lost love brought him a son of his own blood, who definitely did not fit. He had been raised by his mother in lavish praise and immense pressure as the grandson of the Demon King. He had been taught to kill, to dominate, all to one day take after his grandfather, and he took pride in that bloody destiny. But not uh, but now his mother had uprooted him, left him with a father he had never met. From demon to man, he did not know who he was or who he should be. Eager to prove himself better than his brothers, he went after a thief during his first outing. Just a simple thief, and then it shows him cut that man's head off. uh, but the demon ways he had been taught did not find an echo in his father's eyes. And then it shows him like looking at Bruce for like approval, and Bruce looks away. It says the way his father looked at him, he knew something was off with him, and he could feel it itching. So when the king left on a quest, he entrusted his kingdom to his children, all except the prince. He knew he could be great. How unfair of this world to make him feel so small. And then on the third night of the third month there, rumors came that the poorest in the land had started disappearing. All of his interest was piqued when the witnesses claimed a demon was behind it all. The prince now knew what to do. What better way to prove his renouncing of the demon ways than by bringing one defeated to his father? Sets the whole thing up, bro. Like, and
Right,
now
right,
it's a
right, right,
little
right.
kid trying to prove that he's not, for the first time, not having pride in that background with
Right,
race and the
right.
blood and the guts and all that comes of that. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of that character is that he comes in badass because he thinks he knows it all, and almost can't operate if everyone's happy and if everything's okay. He's perfect in Crisis, but he's a child. He should be able to, enjoy life and be able to, go through life and experience great things. And this idea that he's going back, the whole thing is drawn also like almost cartoon like, but it never takes away from the gravitas and stuff. When I was just talking about how he was raised by his grandparents, there's an image of them three in shadow, but over their
Right.
faces are these articulate demon drawings of demon
Oh,
faces,
nice.
and
Nice,
that's
nice,
something that they
nice.
constantly put on him throughout the thing, almost as if that's something inside of him that he's fighting
Right.
against is this demon, and can he slay the demons to prove that he's not one? And the idea that that is the manifestation, or that's the manifesto of a 12-year-old or whatever in this. Oh, I love it so much. Like I said, I've read a lot of it. The artwork is very unique. Batman books can often be incredibly dry and dark and torture for torture's sake. There is a terrible Damian Wayne book out that came out a couple years ago. When I first started liking the character, I tried to inhale everything that he was in. There was one with
Right.
him where he had a big flying bat like dog thing. That was
Oh yeah,
fine.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That was
yeah.
fine. There's one with like a laughing fish or whatever. I think it's called Son of Batman or whatever. And I
Oh,
thought that was bad. So I was kind of scared to read Damian Wayne comics after that, because I'm like, if people
right,
don't really have a handle on him, they might just make anything up just to kind of get him across the finish line.
right,
But this really speaks to that constant when you're young and you're trying to figure out who you are, and part of figuring out who you are is who you don't want to be. And I think for
right,
the first time, Damien is realizing who he doesn't want to be through the eyes of his own father, through
right.
the treatment of the other Robins. And yeah, that plus the artwork, I implore everyone, you will not regret it. Pick up The Boy Wonder, because I'll be picking up The Boy Wonder number 5 when it drops on September 4th, which is not too long from now. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I've heard a lot of good things about this book. Junie Ba is definitely a very interesting artist, and I believe she's also writing it as well, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so, I mean, that's a very interesting take on this character. And I like, because from what I've heard is every issue he kind of has to deal with every Robin in some
yeah.
way, right? He's got to
Hmm.
like got to deal with Dick and deal with Jason and deal with Tim to see how okay, I to something to take from each one of them so that he can become his own Robin and not
Yeah.
and be accepted by his dad, which
It's almost like trials, right? Like he has to go
yeah,
through the trials, whatever the trials are, to like gain acceptance into this family. But before the trials, before having bloodlust meant success, and now he has to curve that
right,
and find
right,
empathy. And he can find empathy with the Bat Family because the Bat Family is awesome. There's a lot of love there. But growing up under, Raish and Talia and Shiva and those guys over there, where they train like weakness is death, and you're 10 years old and you know how to decapitate somebody. I like that juxtaposition. And with like, at one point, like you said, Dick shows up and he's there with Barbara, and they're kind of like hazing him. They're like, "Ah, did you bring the crayons for the kid?" Kind of stuff like that. You ever, and you're reading it from his perspective, so he really is trying to come out of the shadow of everyone above him, the entire Bat family, but also the shadow of whatever darkness he's leaving behind by leaving this
hmm,
by leaving the Al Ghul's and leaving all that stuff behind. Like I said, it's just so effective or affecting when you look at any of his artwork and it shows a child with a demon's face drawn over it.
right, right, right.
That's
That
the
nuts,
weight he has everywhere he goes. That is what he sees. He will always be the demon's grandson. He is the demon. He's the head. Oh, so he's the heir to the demon's whole kingdom, if it will.
right.
And yeah, so the last one is just saying, is could this fairy tale possibly have a happy ending, or is the story of Damian Wayne an unescapable tragedy? And we shall see.
Now, do you think because these are always fun stories for Robin characters to have to like solidify their place as a Robin. But do
Hmm.
you think this story will further solidify Damian as the Robin, or is this kind of a story that's it does I mean, doesn't sound like it, but is it overselling Damian as the Robin?
I do think it's more of the first. I do think it is kind of solidifying him as the Robin, but more so, I think that this is going to be one of those books that if you are a fan of Damian Wayne, you pick up. But if you aren't a fan of Damian Wayne, I think at the very least, this book will show you empathy towards the character. You won't hate him. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people who hate him, and maybe a lot of that hate is justified. How I came into it and how I was introduced to him, I thought he was fine. I thought he was a unique sort of character at the time, but I can see him being seen as not great, especially if you hold on tenderly to any of the Robins that you had, growing up.
Right.
I knew in my heart of hearts that Dick always becomes Nightwing. I liked Red Hood for his edginess, and then Tim was Robin, but that was stock for me. Like that, he was just Robin. He was just Robin. So the idea of growing with one, almost from inception and growing with him, kind of making the same mistakes, gave me a unique perspective on that character. But this literally puts all the best parts of him forward. The idea that he's just trying. He really is just trying. And all of this abrasive nature comes from family, comes from, how he thought he was supposed to be raised, how he thought he was supposed to be as a person. And what happens when you take those things and you mix them? How often do we meet people who just weren't raised with the love that we were, and thus they don't know how to talk to people, or they don't know how to solve like an argument, or they don't know how
Yeah.
to just
Yeah.
de-escalate, because to them those things never existed in their household. And to choose to be better is the story I will never get tired of. Choosing, actively saying, damn, okay, maybe I'm not the best version of myself. Uh, and I want to be better because the people around me deserve a better version of me. Is something that I will never tire of. You put that in the mind of a 10-year old and I'm sold. A 10-year old assassin and I'm sold. So yeah, the boy Wonder Man.
Nice.
Pick it up.
Nice. This was definitely a book that after you recommended the first issue, I was like, ooh, this is on my radar. And I've heard nothing but good things about it since. And I'm waiting to hopefully read it in trade. And this
Yeah.
sounds great. This definitely sounds great. And Damien, even though he's not my Robin, I'm not saying that to the point where, oh, I won't accept him as a Robin, but it just not a Robin I've read a lot of,
Yeah.
more mostly under the Grant Morrison stuff. And everything, like you said, since has not been super interesting. This sounds very, very interesting. And I like the fact that it's like you said, it's a trial by him having to go through all the Robins and then his own uh upbringing and his own mentality, and again, yet at the same time being a 10-year-old kid. So
Yeah.
this is a fascinating journey. So yeah,
I'm
definitely, I'll
I'm
definitely be
really
looking into this.
I'm really hoping I like this book, and I'm really hoping because something has been announced to be coming as well. I hope that they do the same with Cassie. I think Cassandra Cain can use this sort of treatment. I think that she's been kind of lost in the sauce in these books recently, but I think they're coming up with a Black Label Batgirl book that she's going to be
Nice,
on. And the idea of,
nice.
again, a child raised as an assassin who was not literally not taught how to speak, because that
Yeah,
was not important. You know,
no, good point.
not important. You just need to know how to speak the art of body language and know how people are speaking to you, how they're breathing, how their heart rate is. That will tell you everything that you need to know if they're coming at you as an enemy, a friend, etc., and so forth. And how does that person get roped into the Bat family? So I'm hoping that she gets that same treatment as well. And if they do, then yeah, they got a fan in me.
Nice, nice. Oh, great pick. And for me, for my last pick, I'm gonna go with a book that's been around for quite some years now.
The Bible.
That I believe
Oh.
close, close.
Am I? How close? How close?
I mean, the title of this book almost makes you think of the Bible because the title of the book is called Saga, right? And the Bible is one hell of a saga, right? You're
I
finally
know of Saga. I
and
think if you are listening to any kind of comic book, if you're looking at any sort of the landscape of comic books, you have heard that word Saga, and it's either excited or completely frightened you. It's frightened me because of the pure enormity the story has become.
yeah,
But I hear it is the best concentrated version of what all this modern indie comic stuff is. Like this is
yeah,
the patient zero in a lot of ways. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, Saga, written by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and kind of going with your last month's mention of kind of Carnal. This is
Yeah.
Saga number 69.
Oh, six
So,
nice.
and Saga, even though on the surface it's a story of this intergalactic war being fought between these two giant warring factions, who at the heart is these two main races, right? And what happens in it is two opposing members of each army fall in love with each other, and they produce a child, and each side of the war is like, yo, we can't have this exist
Right.
because this shows that we can get along, and that's bad for business because this war has been going on for a long time, and the
Yeah.
last thing they want people to see is that, oh look, we can actually come together and end this thing. So neither side wants them to be known, but at the heart of it, those three people, the parents and the child, all they want is peace for themselves. They don't look at themselves like, oh, we're now the defining the future, that what you guys should strive towards. We're just a family now, leave us alone. And they're just trying to
Yeah.
survive, and the what they go through is very much like the title says, a saga, and it's all told from the perspective of the child. From the beginning of the book,
Ah.
you're reading it from her diary's perspective. It's the first line is literally like her diary entry, and it's her telling her life from literally from the time that she's born until where we're at now, and so forth, so on and so forth. So this book has been amazing. A lot of people got turned off to it recently, not because, in my opinion, anything that the story has told, but because it went on hiatus. This story has been so emotionally deep and just staggering emotionally that Brian K. Vaughan took a vacation from the book. He just was like, I need to get off the book. He initially announced it as a 1 year hiatus. It turned into a 3 year hiatus. Yeah. And he came back with the book about less than a year ago now. And even in that time of a year, I think only like 5 issues have come out. But he's such a good and talented writer. This is the guy who wrote Why the Last Man. He wrote Ex Machina. He's written great runs on X-Men, Ultimate X-Men, and many other books. Pride of Baghdad, if you ever read that. This is a guy who knows how to write so well that even when you pick up, like, there are times that I go, man, I haven't read Saga in 2, 3 months, even after that 3 year hiatus. And I picked up that first issue afterwards, and I was like, I was put right back in it. And he doesn't do it in a cheesy way of a recap or anything like that. He
Yeah.
just like puts you back into that world in a way that you're like, oh, I remember. Even though I haven't read this book in 3 years, I remembered. That's how good he is at writing. And this I think this is the only book he's written over the last like 6 or 7 years, outside of a couple miniseries he's kind of
Yeah.
written here and there. But this book has taken a lot of his energy, and it month to month is a great book. You get so invested with these characters, you get so invested in this world that things happen and you feel it. And you feel it. If you know, like, shows in the last couple of years like Game of Thrones, or House of the Dragon, or other shows like that, where you quickly find yourself getting attached to characters and then they go away, and you it almost feels like you lost a limb or a piece of yourself or a member of your own family.
Yeah.
That's what this book is like, because things happen in this book, and that's one of the, I always mention it, is why I love indie books, is because they don't have to follow the rules of the mainstream books. Characters will die, things will happen to characters that you think, oh my, like, what? I like this character. How dare you do this? And that's part of the journey when you get into an indie book, and especially a book on this level. And I've never talked about it in this whole year that we've been doing major previews now, and I wanted
Hmm.
to give it some love because Saga deserves it. Pick up the compendiums. They are worth it. I mean, and talk about, even though you're thinking, oh my God, 68 issues I got to catch up on. Every issue reads so fast, so fast. It's such a good book, and you just feel it immediately. So I highly recommend picking up the entire series and definitely picking up issue 69.
I think a lot of people were there's a ton of people who already are on this book and are ready to see it to its conclusion. But there's people like me who have been kind of waiting for a jumping on point, and you're kind of giving it to me right now, which is exciting because sometimes when you get on some of these longer form things, it is an adventure, it is a saga. And the longer that you spend with these characters, the more you know them. And you almost know them as well as the writer knows them. And a
Mhm.
good writer is able to, like you said, take a hiatus of sorts, and it just feels like it goes back in because he knows what these people would do in those situations. What's unique about stories like this is when they exist for as long as they have, the characters start to exist independently. You can put them in a situation and be like, "Oh, what would they do in this?" And you would know because you've read 50 examples of what they've done in these sort of situations. So to watch these characters become larger in our life, to watch the world sort of, every blank spot sort of been colored in. That's what you do, right? The longer you write, the more you start filling in everything around you. It doesn't last this long without being successful. It doesn't last this long without being groundbreaking. It doesn't last this long without being a fan favorite. And I heard it can get even sexy at times.
Very,
You're talking
very.
about issue 69. But I hear, I could say a lot of comics currently are sexless. I think it's fair. I think that it's fair to say. I don't think I've seen the two ducks that you are in front of getting it on, but in Saga you might. You
Yeah.
might.
No, I mean,
And
if last month you talked about loving a book like Sex Criminals,
yes,
right? Saga is definitely a book where sex is a huge influence over the book, but it never feels gratuitous
yeah,
because it's at this, I know some people don't want to hear that, love and sex are the same, but
yeah.
when you are in love with someone and you are in a relationship with them, sex is something that most times
It's an act
occurs.
of love. It can be an act of love. Yeah.
Right. So, and this is the book that tackles with that idea a lot, and and it even delves into, because Brian K. Vaughan loves to talk about gender role. I mean, that's something he's always discussed, even as far back as his book like Why the Last Man.
Hmm.
So in this book, you get a lot of that, and it's an amazing ride. It definitely helps you, brings questions to the forefront that you may have never had, and it even makes you accept certain things that maybe in the past you wouldn't have accepted. It's a great book. Brian does a great job telling this story.
Awesome, awesome. I think we got some pretty hard hitting picks this month.
Yeah.
Some really, really good stories. And like I said, it's only been getting better. The more we keep our eyes on the prize that is comic books, as they continue to evolve, as writers get better, as artists get better, as new collaborations start to happen, you're like, oh, you would have thought this team would have been going on forever. And old collaborators get together and, recreate magic like you said, like if they were never gone. It's the only medium I know that does this. It's the only medium I know that you can get overloaded with just awesomeness all the time, and it makes doing these previews for you guys that much easier because this is quite literally excitement coming out of me, coming out of the cog, because there are some very, very important, not just interesting, but important things going on in comics right now, as it seems to be taking another turn in this separate era that we're going through right now, where for a very long time, uh, it was seen as secondary to the media that would adapt it. And now we're getting to a point where we're realizing that the media that adapts it is nothing without the originals. And with that being said, now more than ever, I wouldn't be even surprised if some of these studios are now get your ass in the comic book shop, walk around, ask what's hitting, and
Damn right.
because that's where they're hoping to find their innovation. And like I said again, some of these stories, um, the passion is trapped in them. If done right, that passion is trapped. And if it was written in 1980 or 2028, you pick up that series and the heart of it is still in there because the artist and the writer have trapped their passion in there. Just like every one of these episodes of Major Previews, our
Damn
passion
right.
will be sitting there trapped in it. And yeah, like I said, we'll come up with I think at the end of the year I want to come up with some of our favorite picks that we've
Yeah.
done of this year, whether they just be books that we continue to follow, or just updates of like, yeah, that went well, and then it kind of just fell off a cliff. Like I kind of want to talk about all that there. But yeah, I'm finding new books to read. It's giving me a new lease on life. Every new book that comes out is just another day, another reason to live. You know how that goes.
I definitely agree.
So yeah, that we're wrapping up our picks for September, but we'll definitely have picks out for October soon enough, the spooky season, and then we'll be getting into some holiday season stuff. As you know, we do this once a month. We do the Major Issues podcast once a week, covering the latest and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. We're at facebook.com/comic book click, Instagram at comic book click. You can use the hashtag comic book click to talk about all the things that we talk about here, or just go to comicbookclick.com, the one stop for everything that we do. But if you'd like to give us a bit of financial inspiration, you can do so by going to patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse. For as little as 10 cents a day, $3 a month, you can help us afford things and keep the lights on here and afford the hardware and the software we need to keep producing content free of charge. We do this video series once a month free of charge. Like I said, we do major previews once a week free of charge. We do Major Issues live on Facebook. So if you guys are just following us here, go to Facebook and you can be part of our live shows that we record for the Major Issues podcast. All of this stuff is a labor of love, but if you can help out in any way, consider doing it, because we want to do this for a very long time, and we might just need a little bit of your assistance and support to do so. But this has been a blast. It's always been a blast. And there's really nothing else left to say, but my name is George Serrano, aka The Don.
And I'm Alex Garcia, aka the Cog.
And this has been Major Previews, looking for the latest and greatest things to come out of comic books in September of 2024. So go ahead, support your local comic book stores, go talk to your favorite comic book fan, and always remember that you, yes, you, are worthy.